Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start the class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhuvava Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Asto ma satgamya tamso ma jyotirgamya mrityorma amritam gamya. Om sehna vavatu sehna bhunaktu saviryam karvavahi tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi. Om shanti shanti shanti. There is a term which we read in all our scriptures. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about this term also. So today I thought I will put some light on this term. And this term is Varna. Varna. So that's why today's topic is the Varna, Dharam or Varna Ashram. This term comes in Bhagavad Gita also, in Mahabharata also. The other day in Bhagavad Puran also, we read about it. But still there's always a lot of confusion about it. Because generally we all think that Varna means duties prescribed for each caste. So we translate it as a caste. And this term caste, there's a lot of problem for many people today, because over time the whole idea has come to be entirely misunderstood about caste. So let's look at this term Varna. It's a Sanskrit term. Just like any other Sanskrit term, there are many meanings for Varna also. Basically, Varna is, it means to describe or that by which a thing is described. Varna can also mean name, color, form, quality, relationship, etc. Because we describe a thing according to these attributes. For example, when we study a science, like a botany or zoology, the entire vegetable and animal kingdoms are classified according to similar qualities and attributes. The same is true in the material sciences also, such as physics and chemistry, where elements and minerals of similar properties are grouped together. Among human beings, there is also much variety in color, in shape, in ability, mental temperament, etc. When we say that all human beings are equal, we really mean this to be true from the spiritual standpoint. Like essence of all of us is the same. The source is the same. So essence is part of God. We are all ansh of that anshi. But all of us have different capacity to do something, whatever it may be. So in our personality, we are different. In our essence, we are the same. So each one of us has a particular ability by nature. Okay. One person performs physical labor, another writes poetry or does public speaking, and yet another does social service work. So just as objects and beings are classified in other sciences according to their different natures, spiritual science also classifies society into 4 groups. And this is called Chatur Varna. So it's like a grouping according to all this. So these 4 types of people are found everywhere in the world, not just in India. In this regard, Lord Krishna makes a famous statement in Bhagavad Gita, which says, Chatur Varnya Maya Srishtam Gun Karam Vibhagsha. This is in chapter 4, verse number 13. The fourfold caste has been created by me according to the differentiation of gun, that means the quality, and karma, the action. Very clearly, Lord Krishna is defining what the varna is. There must always be a basis for classification. For example, countries of the world are classified as third world countries, developed nations, or underdeveloped nations. But what is the standard of measurement here? From what standpoint is one country considered developed or underdeveloped? Because if we look from a spiritual standpoint, those who are considered materially underdeveloped might be most developed spiritually. So the Chatur Varna are classified based upon Gun and Karam. Remember that. Not based upon the birth. So very clearly, Lord Krishna has said that, very clearly it's mentioned in the Vedas also. So Gun and Karam. Let's look at these 4 Varans, the way we know them. So caste, or the classification based on Gun. One of them is Brahmans, the thinking class. With respect to this first category, Karam would mean one's ability to study, research, invent, discover, teach, and do other such work that requires much thought. So thinking has to be prominent there. Because everyone is not able to do this. Just like we see a number of dropouts from secular schools. Some people say the numbers are increasing. The same is true in the spiritual field also. So many people start meditating and then they drop out. Start attending the discourses or the yoga classes, then they drop out. So from Vedic times onwards, those who were of an intellectual nature, capable of studying, capable of teaching, were called Brahmans, the thinking class. This is why we see every organization always has an advisory board. They call it a think tank to create new ideas, to make decisions. In the second class is a Kshatriya. That's a leader class. This category is capable of leading the society towards the ideals shown by the Brahmans. So Brahmans are the teachers. They show this is the path, but who really shows the way, lead the way, that is the Kshatriya, looking after the people and courageously fighting battles when necessary. So the thinkers, they have the vision or ideals for the society, but a thinker does not always have the capacity to bring them about in a practical way. So the Kshatriya is needed because This type of person can act on the ideas. So the Kshatriyas are the natural born leaders of the society. So thinkers and the leaders. And the third is the business class, the Vaishya. Vaishyas are the business-minded people. They have a propensity to produce wealth, not only for themselves, but for society at large. These are the people engaged in agriculture, cattle raising, other businesses. We all know that not everybody has this business tendency and the know-how. And the fourth classification is a Shudra, the labor class. Is made up of those people who perform seva, service. They are not capable of thinking of ideas or leading the society or producing much wealth, but when they are told what needs to be done, they will do it. Therefore, in every organization, there are people who give suggestions and make plans, others who put the plans into action, others who do the fundraising, and still others who do whatever practical labor needs to be done. But the main point is that everybody is capable of doing one thing or another. And no category is any way inferior to another. In fact, when you understand the real meaning of the four Varans, you will see that each of us is really Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, all put together actually. If you think about it deeply. Personally, I find it very true. In one field, I'm able to have an idea or vision, but I'm not able to do anything practically. Whereas in another field, I'm able to work, but do not have creative ideas. So each personality is a combination of all these four. So practically speaking, all four types are necessary in our individual lives also, not just in the society alone. In our own individual life also, we need all four as a family unit and in social activities. Yet a person is called a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, depending upon whether his or her nature is predominantly that of a thinker or a leader or a business person or a worker. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Now let's look at the caste according to the guns, the qualities. As Lord Krishna explained in the Bhagavad Gita, the classification of castes is also based on one's inner mental qualities or gunas. We all know that in the Prakriti, in the all Prakriti and even in a human nature, there's a composition of three guns. And what are those guns? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva gun is of the nature of knowledge, a desire for knowledge, and the qualities of love, faith, kindness, and compassion. Those are all sattvic qualities. And the Rajogun is of the nature of activity, numerous desires, ambitions, and its manifestations. That's Rajogun. And Tamas is of the nature of inertia, laziness. It manifests as a dullness and little interest or ambition of any kind. That's a Tamogun. A Brahman is described as one who is predominantly sattvic, with some rajas and a little tamas in his personality. Kshatriya is one who is predominantly rajasic, a very ambitious person with some sattva and a little rajas, a little tamas in him. So predominantly rajasic, some sattva and a little tamas. That is a kshatriya. And Vaishya is the person when the gun of the rajas is predominant, with almost as much as tamas, the least amount of sattva. And the Shudra is predominantly tamasic, with some rajas and very little sattva. So all three are there, but the ratio changes. So we have seen that the division of the Varna ashram is based on karma, which is action, and gun, the quality, not on birth, janam, as is commonly understood today. Okay, so this should be very clear to us. In fact, Manu Samriti says that everyone is actually born as a Shudra. Janmanaha jayate Shudraha, from Manu Samriti. Because at birth, we are basically the raw material of life from which anything can be made. We cannot judge what a person will be by what caste he is born into. For a Brahman can become a Shudra, and Shudra can become a Brahman with your own effort. And there are many, many examples of that. Some people live an inspired life in their youth, but later on become dull and debased, while others begin life by being dull, but become very bright and successful later on. So this change can happen because this is part of the Prakriti. And in the Prakriti, changes are happening and we have control over it. So how then did this caste by birth system came about? So Vedas, they were very clear about it. Bhagavad Gita, very clear about it. Manu Smriti, very clear about it. This has happened, this rigidity happened only in the last several hundred years. When people with Brahman qualities, for example, began to marry only those people with similar qualities, and the children born into those families were then called Brahmins. So in order to be a Brahman, you got to be a son of a Brahman or a daughter of a Brahman. So it became very rigid. But this was not the original intent, nor the basis upon which the Varna was actually divided. There are Chanakya Sutras from India. One of the Chanakya Sutras says a person should be engaged only in a field of activity that he is capable of doing. So that means the capability has to be there. You should have the quality of that. So when this principle is followed, there is no problem. If everyone has the attitude that I'm capable of doing this particular work and I'm doing it to serve the society, then naturally there will be Dharam. Total integration of society as well as of the individual. If we do not have this understanding, disintegration will be the only result. Dharam, see, because I told you this Varan, Dharam. Varan, ashram. So these terms got to be understood properly. So Dharam is that which integrates the individual as well as the society and enables a person to ultimately reach the true Dharam. And the true Dharam is who we are in essence. According to the true Dharam, we are all same. According to the Varan Dharam, according to the quality and the natures, we are different. So abidance in the absolute nature of the self is the true Dharam. Whether one is capable of thinking and planning or leading, creating wealth or doing manual labor, Dharam is fulfilled when people of all four Varans perform their duties and responsibilities completely in an attitude of selflessness. Selflessness, that is the key thing there. In the field of education, for example, if the students are sincerely interested in their studies, if the teachers are devoted to their profession, and if the administration is devoted to its own task, we know that schools will run smoothly. At home also, if the mother, father, and children all fulfill their duties devotedly, what will be there? There will be sweetness and peace in the house. But if everyone argues and wants to give up their own duty, saying, why should I do this? Why don't you do it? There will be only friction. Disharmony comes about when we are careless and forgetful of our duties. Again, going back to Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Suve suve karmanye abhirata samsiddhi labte nara. Chapter 18, verse number 45. Engaged in one's own duty, one attains perfection. Own duty. Devotion to duty gives us purity of mind. This purity brings about inner perfection and complete self-unfoldment. Just like a doctor doesn't have to do the work of a lawyer does not have to do the work of an engineer. Each one should remain devoted to the work of which he is capable of. Perfection of a worldly kind too is attainable by one who devotes his or her entire energy to his or her special field of interest and talent. And with what attitude should we perform our work? Shri Krishna tells us about that also. Again, chapter 18, verse number 46, he says, he from whom all beings have evolved, by whom all this world is pervaded, worshipping him with one's own duty, one attains perfection. So goal is perfection. And if we remember him only, doing everything for him, then there is no problem. Yat pravriti bhutanam yen sarvam idam tattvam. So we should worship that Supreme Lord from whom the entire world has emerged. Entire world. It's not just only a section of the world. Sarvam idam. Worship that Supreme Lord from whom the entire world has emerged and by whom this entire world is pervaded. There's no place where that Supreme is not. Work done with this attitude of worship of the infinite Lord is called true karam. Whatever work we do, look at it as a duty, should be done as a worship to the Lord with an attitude of dedication and surrender. This is what Lord Krishna is saying. And he says you can attain perfection no matter what you are doing. It's not only a Brahman's duty, not just a Kshatriya's duty, any duty, what you are capable of doing. Just remember you are doing it for God. Serve Him. Bring the selflessness into it. To understand how dedicated action integrates a society, let's take an example of a good cup of coffee. How is it made? We know that a good cup of coffee, we must have the 4 ingredients: the water, the coffee grounds, milk and sugar. 4 things. The nature of the water is not that of the coffee grounds. The nature of the coffee is not the same as the sugar. Each ingredient has its own special quality. We cannot say that one ingredient is more important than the other. So there's no question of superiority or inferiority. But when all 4 ingredients are mixed together in proper proportion, and each ingredient surrenders or offers its quality for the sake of the whole. That is the key word, for the sake of the whole. Then that coffee is wonderful. Imagine if the coffee powder says, I am superior. Why should I surrender? And it decides to withdraw its quality. The result will be no coffee at all. Society is something like this cup of coffee. It is made up of 4 ingredients, the 4 castes. Each one has its own nature, its own contribution to make the whole. None is superior to the other. So problem came when certain people or certain classifications, they thought that they are better than the others. There's no superior or inferior. Everybody is needed to make it a whole. If each individual becomes dedicated to offer his or her own best qualities in serving others, the result will be a better society. Society at large, we don't have much control, but our own little society, our own families, individual units, we have control over it. When each unit is functioning like that, then all the units put together, they'll function beautifully. Problems in society arise only when we assume a mistaken sense of superiority and inferiority. People say that in India, the problems are because of the caste system, but we find the same kinds of pressures exist almost everywhere. If it's not a problem of caste, it may be due to racial discrimination or something else. When individuals or racial groups think themselves superior to others, they will want to exercise authority over the other parties. And this may continue for some time, but how long will the oppressed remain suppressed and controlled? Sooner or later, they will revolt, and struggle of some kind will happen. And sometimes leading to war also. And these days we see that all over the globe. So remember, it's not that something is necessarily wrong with the social or political system. The system can only work properly when all its components, parts work in harmony. That is the key over here. And with the dedication, understanding the whole. The present degraded condition everywhere, all over the globe, is due to the flaws in our own minds. And what kind of a flaws? Humanity's greed, selfishness, pride, arrogance, and other negative qualities. That's where we have the problem. So if you want to summarize this Varna, Ashram, Dharam, if we understand it fully, the fulfillment of all our duties given to us according to our station or stage in life, we need to perform them with attitude of worship. That's what our gurus, our yogis, our saints, our avatars have said. Whatever you are doing, whatever is your duty, do it with the attitude of worship, offering to the Lord for the benefit of the entire society. You are a very important part in this whole scheme. And if we reflect upon it deeply and act upon it also, then peace, we feel the peace inside us. No matter what we are doing, we could be mopping a floor or heading an organization, anything which we are doing. But if we think that we are doing it for that Lord who is everywhere, pervades all and created all, then there's no system with any classification or any caste, and there's no friction. So let's stop it here, and we'll have some discussion over this, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.